Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the official Smash Ultimate tier list for 2024. Some of y'all may remember from last year when lumirank published the official tier list for 2023, and that tier list kind of stunk, I'm not going to lie. But this tier list is actually quite good. And I also want to shout out the article that they did, just like last year, where they have the methodology that they use, some of the analysis, like characters that went up and down, and the regional differences. And a link to that will be down below. In today's video, we're just going to be talking about the tier list, but there's some pretty cool stuff in here, so I highly recommend you check it out. As always, we're going to start from the bottom and work towards the top, and I don't really have anything to say about the E tier, aside from Ganondorf being clearly the worst character in the game. I know there's still a couple people that don't agree with this take, but I definitely am one of those people that have to agree. He's just so slow. He lacks any combos, pretty much. He's one of the easiest characters in the game to edgeguard, and he does have clear win conditions, which is just, I'm going to hit you with one move, but it is a massive struggle for him to actually hit you with that move, so I have to agree that he's definitely the worst. I'm not going to be spending as much time in the lower tiers just because the placements really don't matter as much to me, but there are a couple characters that I want to talk about. The first one is going to be Kirby. I think he is way too low, and by way too low, I mean I would move him to the bottom of the C tier, but still a whole tier shift for him. He's got some really solid tilt. His aerials are pretty good. His specials kind of suck, but depending on who you're playing against, neutral special can get a lot of value, and having a command gram from the air is always going to be nice. His damage output is super good. His killing is actually fairly nice just because he has so many moves that start killing towards the higher percents, as well as a couple kill confirms. F smash is a ridiculously good move. F tilt as well. I know I already talked about his tilt being good, but Kirby's main problems are going to be his weight is really light. He is fairly stubby, and the biggest one is going to be his aerial mobility. Yeah, he's got a bunch of jumps, but you really don't want to be in the sky too much with this character because he is so slow. But as I've already mentioned, his tilts are very good on the ground. You can get combo starters off it. He's going to get a combo starter off a grab at certain percents as well, and I definitely think that he should be moved up to the C tier. Another problem I have with this D tier is going to be Isabelle over Villager, and it's only by 2 spots, so it doesn't really matter, but I think Villager's better, so I want to talk about some things that are going for Isabelle's favor. She is going to have an infinite, but it's a really hard infinite to hit, but Villager doesn't have it, so you definitely got to give her points there. She's going to have more consistency overall because she's always going to have 2 turnips with the up air and the down air versus Villager, who can have 1 to 3, so you could argue Villager higher highs in that aspect, but maybe not as consistent as Isabelle. But the reason that I put Villager above her ultimately is because, one, I just don't think that her side B is very good. There's certain matchups where you get a lot of value out of it, but for most of the time, it's just okay. And I think down B is a bad move. If you're getting hit by down B, unless it's at the ledge in a super tricky scenario, then you kind of just don't know how to play against Isabelle. Whereas Villager, on the other hand, having Axe and Tree is super scary. And if you get hit by Tree, it's probably not going to happen. But if you get hit by it, you're dying at like 70%. And Axe is just another kill move that Isabelle does not have access to. And again, it doesn't really matter. They're only 3 characters apart, but I just wanted to mention. I also forgot to mention that Bowling Ball is just a really good move, and versus certain characters, it kind of just destroys the recovery. And the final character that I want to mention in the D tier is going to be Donkey Kong. I think this character's advantage state is just way too strong for him to be in the D tier, and I would put him in the middle of the C tier. This character hits so hard, as I've already established. His killing is incredible. He's got the best grab in the entire game, and Ding Dong is a thing in this game. It's a little bit more specific on the percents and the stage, but you definitely can still Ding Dong people at like 60 to 80% versus a lot of the cast, and that's obviously going to be amazing having a kill confirm out of your grab. The only bad thing about Donkey Kong is going to be his disadvantage. He's probably got the worst disadvantage in the entire game, so matchups with him are going to be very swingy, but he's got these sword-like tilts. His back air is such a good move. His pressure is just so incredible that I really think it makes up for how bad his disadvantage is, and I'd put him in the middle of the C tier. Moving on to the C tier, and I honestly have like 0 issues with the C tier. There's only 2 characters that I want to talk about. The first one is going to be Banjo. It's not even because I disagree with the Banjo placement. I just kind of want to talk about BanjoKazooie. This character has been pushed so far recently. Used to see him at like the bottom of the D tier, but now he's the bottom of the C tier. That is massive progress, and I think 90% of that progress has to be given the credit to Toroguri. He has just pushed this character so far and made everyone realize that he's actually pretty solid. He's got kill confirms off of down B. Down B is just a really good move in general. If you can make the maximum value out of Wonder Wing, it's an incredible move because it does like 30%. It's invincible and it kills you at like 80, and you can confirm into it, which is pretty ridiculous. His eggs are really annoying to deal with. This character isn't good by any means, but I appreciate all the work that's been done to raise him on the tier list. And there is a character in the C tier that I actually have a problem with, and that is going to be Bowser. Now, I play Bowser, so I am full bias, but I would have him at the bottom of the B tier. This character is a race car that hits you insanely hard, and he doesn't really need kill confirms, but he's going to have an amazing kill confirm off of Nair, and that move itself does like 40% Flame Breath does 40%. He has a Grab Confirm, which does like 40%. Basically, you take a lot of damage from Bowser in everything that he does, and his disadvantage is definitely a weak spot, and he is the worst character in the entire game off the ledge because he literally cannot ledge roll. So easy to react to, and he's also just this massive hitbox. But if you do manage to get off the ledge, then your Bowser with Rage, and then moves like Side B, which is a command grab that is frame 6, start killing you at like 100%. You have Up B, so you really can't touch Bowser's shield. He is just such a solid character, and I feel like he's being undervalued because his disadvantage is so bad. But when he gets to play the game, he is an absolute nightmare. Also, I should mention that Incineroar is maybe a little bit too low. I might move him into the B tier, but that's only because there's a couple of characters in the B tier that I would move below him, not because I would move him significantly higher. Moving on to the B tier, and this or the A tier is the one that I have the most problems with. Starting off with these two characters right here, Inkling and Mega Man. Now, Inkling, it's honestly fine that she's in the B tier. There's just a couple characters in the C tier that I would move above her. I would move Climbers above her. I would move Incineroar above her. I would move Bowser above her. I would move maybe Pichu above her, and I would definitely move Meta Knight above her. But aside from that, she's fine, so whatever. Mega Man, though, this character is way too low. I would put him in the plus section of the B tier, and as we get later into the tier list, the placement movements are going to get less and less significant, but they're going to have more impact because he's passing a lot of pretty solid characters, and I think Mega Man overall is extremely underrated in this game. This character's boxing is very good. His mid-range is incredibly difficult to deal with. He has kill confirms out the wazoo, and the meta that has been pushed with his Metal Blade tech is absolutely absurd. He could just do so much damage off of Footstool Metal Blade, and it's also going to set up into a kill confirm. I really think that we're going to see this character shine in 2024. I want to highlight this Luigi replacement, not because I disagree with it, but because I agree with it a whole lot, and I think people maybe won't, but Luigi has just been having such good results this year, and I could kind of see where people are coming from. This character's damage output is absurd. One of the hardest hitting characters in the entire game. He has so many kill confirms as well as just raw kill moves. You really cannot touch Luigi's shield because he'll up B you, and even if you space it a little bit better so he can't up B you, he still has up smash out of shield. If you get shield grabbed, you're just going to die. If you get grabbed by Luigi at pretty much any percent, you're either going to die or take like 80, which is fairly absurd. This only saving grace of the character is going to be that his recovery is fairly bad, but it is still somewhat difficult to deal with because of how much variety you have of when you're actually going to release the side B time. There's always the factor of misfire. I'm not trying to tell you that Luigi's recovery is good, but there is a percent that he gets back to the stage, and when you are allowing Luigi to get back to the stage, then you have Luigi with Rage, and that is just an absolute nightmare. This character's damage output, combo game, and kill confirms are just so strong that I think it's definitely justifiable that he's above characters like Ken, Ness, and Falcon. Next up is going to be Mii Brawler and Sephiroth, and I'm talking about them together because I think Mii Brawler is going to go up, and I think that Sephiroth is definitely going to go down. I think Seph is going to get surpassed by Young Link and Luigi and Falcon and Rosa and Hero and Ness and Mega Man and Meta Knight and maybe Toon Link, maybe Pitts. This character is not very good in my opinion. He's just super lacking in the damage output department, and the good thing about Sephiroth is going to be his walling. He is fairly hard to get in versus him, but once you get in versus Sephiroth, you only need to do it like 1 or 2 more times, if even that, because of how light this character actually is, and he's decent when it comes to getting the kill because he just has these massive sword boxes that he can throw up, but he really struggles to get that damage output. He often doesn't get to use his wing, and overall the character is just extremely difficult and not worth it a lot of time, especially when all of these characters below him have way better damage output, similar killing, and they don't weigh as much as Jigglypuff. And then Mii Brawler as well. I think as people get better at tech chasing with this character, he is just going to improve significantly. Mii Brawler is the best tech chasing character in the entire game, at least in my opinion, because he can get you onto a platform extremely easily. He has so many setups into the tech chase, and if he manages to hit the tech chase, he's going to get a grab, and his grab kills you at 50% if you are on a platform because it confirms into Throp Air, and if you're not dying off that grab, then he's just going to use it to set up into another tech chase or set up into a confirm into up B. This character is truly ridiculous, and I do think SDI is a little bit of a hindrance for him, but I don't think it's going to outweigh how good his tech chasing is. And the final character in the B tier that I want to mention is Sheik, and this is a round where I had Sheik in my tier, and I think for right now, this is a fine placement. But by the end of the year, we're all going to be looking at the Sheik placement and thinking, what were we talking about? Because this character is 1000% a late game character. We're already starting to see it with players like specifically WebJP. I feel like he's been pushing this character so far. She has incredible kill confirms. Her damage output is unreal. Her neutral is some of the best in the entire game. Her disadvantage is unreal because she doesn't really have one. She just disengages with bouncing fish a lot of the time. She's some of the best ledge trapping in the game. Her edge guarding is phenomenal. She's pretty much phenomenal in every single aspect except one. She's light. 6'2", she's stubby, but her mobility allowing her to dash in and out really doesn't matter too much in that aspect. But the final one, and the biggest one that's holding her back right now, is just going to be the character's difficulty. Like, doing 80% with Sheik is very doable, but if you mess up at any point, you're going to be taking a lot less damage. Whereas you have, like, Luigi, for example, he does, like, 80% in, like, 5 seconds. A Sheik 80% is 20 seconds. The reps that you have to do with Sheik are a lot more. There's a lot more stuff that you have to follow with SDI. And if you are following that stuff, then I agree that Sheik is better because her neutral is just significantly better than Luigi's, but it's just very difficult to get the maximum value out of Sheik every single time. And that's why she's in the B tier right now. But as Sheik players get better, as the character becomes more proficient, she's 1000% going to rise on these tier lists. And we have arrived at the A tier. And again, overall, like a majority of this tier list, I think the A tier is pretty solid. That doesn't mean I have no issues with it. The first one is going to be Zero Suit. There's a couple characters just in this B tier that I would move above her. I would move Falco above her. I would move Brawler above her. I would maybe move Ryu above her. And I think soon I would move Sheik above her. She just is very lacking in the damage output department, but her neutral is phenomenal. One of the best neutrals in the entire game, and she's one of the best timeout characters in the entire game, which is why I can see this placement definitely being justified. She's just so hard to hit. She's got these really quick hitboxes that are super good at just poking you through. Specifically, moves like F tilt, back air, Zair are just super annoying to deal with, and she does have some super good X factor like confirms into flip kick, but they're just really hard to hit in 2024 because people are super aware of them, and a lot of the time you have to be outplaying your opponent, but you have the tools to outplay pretty much every single character in the game because of how good your mobility is. So good Zero Suit players like Mars, for example, are still going to have massive success with this character, but I think her lack of damage just makes her a little bit worse than some of the other ones she's above. The next character in the A tier is going to be Lucina. It's another situation where her damage output is just not good enough nowadays to be matching with some of these characters in the A tier. Some of these characters in the B tier even. She is solid in the neutral, but is she significantly better than these characters in the neutral? I wouldn't say so. The only real big thing about Lucina is going to be her edge guarding. Her edge guarding is phenomenal. Moves like back air and up air are just such massive walls that are really difficult to deal with, and they also hit you super hard. Her shields, you really can't touch it because of up B, like I mentioned, and it's not like she has terrible damage output, but after that initial like 40%, it's really just going to be a bunch of straight hits from Lucina, and she does have a big sword, which is nice, but it's just not enough in current Smash Ultimate. And I don't want to get it twisted. Lucina is still good, by the way, but I would just have her somewhere in the middle of this B tier. The next two characters I'm not going to spend as much time on because I talk about them in like every single tier of this video, and that's going to be Corrin and Bayonetta. I would move them somewhere in this A dot tier. I have Bayo in my top 10. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, and they will eventually. These characters are just getting pushed further and further. They're both late game characters. They're both extremely good in the meta, and they will rise in 2024. The next character I want to talk about is going to be Mario, and that's just because I think I underrated Mario in my tier list because this character is very good. He's got super solid bread and butters. He gets you to 40% like it's nothing, and once you're at 40%, it's kill time for Mario, whether it be off the top from an up B or a downer, or off the side from a forward air confirm. He just has so many ways to secure the stock, and his neutral is actually incredible. He just has such good mobility, even against characters with really big disjoints that he shouldn't be able to get in against. He's able to weave in and out so expertly. His back air is an incredible move, and if you get a grab versus him, or with him rather, you get so much value out of it. You have Flood to get stage control, and when your opponent is at the ledge and you're Mario, where you can confirm into your forward air from an up air, it's just really scary. Cape is a really strong X Factor move because if you cape someone at literally 0%, they're going to die off stage. Mario just has a lot of things going for him. Stubbiness is still going to be a factor, even though it's not as bad as people may think. It's obviously not going to be great in every single aspect, and his recovery can be a little bit of a weak spot as well as his disadvantage, but I think his damage output, his kill confirms, and his neutral in general is really strong, where this is actually a super good placement. And the only character in this A tier that I honestly have a major problem with is going to be Pikachu, but like Corrin and Bayonetta, I talk about him so much in every single tier list that I'm not going to do it in this one. I have him in my top 5, and this isn't a bad Pikachu placement by any means. He's still very high up there, and I think going into 2024, he is going to continue rising, but I did want to mention it. And the final character that I want to mention in this A tier is going to be Yoshi, and I don't think he's this good, but he's still a very good character. He's got the best aerial drift in the entire game, with some of the best aerials in the entire game. His aerial combos are incredible. All of his tilts are either setting up into his aerials or setting up into a check chase, like down tilt, for example. His jab is surprisingly good. I feel like people really don't give him credit for that move. He's got really good killing just because his moves are straight up killing raw, as well as a handful of kill confirms. His smash attacks are okay, but you really never need them. You just play so much in the air, and and you are going to have that really solid double jump that gets you out of scenarios that other characters just straight up cannot escape from. Now, if that double jump gets clipped, the character is just going to die straight up, but that is a very rare scenario, to be honest, where I feel like it's not that big of an issue. And like I said, I don't think Yoshi is this good, and it's really not Yoshi's fault. There are other characters that I just value more than him, but overall the character is still absurd. And actually, really quickly, before we get into the S tier, there's a couple of characters that I want to talk about that I think have potential to be in the S tier that aren't quite there right now. As I've already said, I have Bayo in my top 10 and Pika in my top 10, so I think they definitely should both be in there, but I can see why everyone else would not agree with that. I think Sora has the potential to go that high, and the one that I'm probably the most confident in is going to be Min Min. As Doramigi has shown us, this is the best edgeguarding character in the entire game. I know I used to say it was Sonic, but that's when Min Min players started going off stage instead of just staying on the ledge the entire time, and when they actually go off stage, it is impossible to recover versus this character, and the recovery does make them a little bit volatile, but you have Aegis in the S tier. Everyone seems to agree that they're in the top 10, and they also have a very volatile recovery, and they have significantly better edge guarding than Aegis, and their neutral is also incredible. Damage output is very good. Everything about Min Min, aside from the recovery, is good, and I think she could be top 10 potentially. And finally, we have the top 10, and I think this top 10 is just very good. 8 of the characters I had in my top 10 are also going to be appearing in this top 10. The only ones that weren't are Pikachu and Bayonetta in place of Fox and Diddy Kong, and I had Fox as my 11th best character in the game, so who cares? And Diddy Kong, I think, was 16th, just shy of the top 10, or top 15 rather, but I could definitely see this character being his high. He is ridiculously good. His damage output is super solid. You have so much creativity. You have an amazing command grab in Monkey Flip, which also makes his burst range super scary, and with Monkey Flip, you also have some of the best kill confirms in the entire game, whether it be off of Banana or down tilt, as well as Nair just being a super scary one into down air. His X Factor is really good because of that down air and how many ways you have to confirm into it. His recovery as well as his edge guarding are just amazing. He can go under the stage, and when a character can go under the stage, I'm always going to give them more points because it just makes ledge trapping them that much harder. I don't have Diddy in my top 10, but if people want to say that he is, I think it's honestly fine. And the rest of this tier list, I have literally no problems with. I had Joker at 8 and Peach at 9. They're pretty much exactly where they're supposed to be. I had Aegis at 7, pretty much exactly where she's supposed to be. And when I made my tier list video, I said that there are 6 characters in this game that are just clearly the 6 best characters in Smash Ultimate, and they were Rob, Game & Watch, Snake, Sonic, Steve, and Pikachu. I know not everyone agrees with me on that Pikachu take, and I said if one character was going to break in that top 6, it would be Aegis, and as you can see, they're in the top 6 for this tier list. And the exact order, I had Rob in the top 5, I had Snake at 6, but it really doesn't matter. Overall, I think this S tier is incredibly well done, and the top 3 characters in this game, Steve at number 1, Sonic at 2, Game & Watch at 3, I think every single tier list for the history of Smash Ultimate is at least going to have Steve and Sonic in the top 2, and I think Game & Watch definitely should be 3rd. I had Snake at 6, like I mentioned, but this character is ludicrous. Having him 4 is definitely acceptable, and this S tier is just super well done. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Overall, I think this tier list was incredible. They got like 90% of the placements right. There wasn't anything too drastic that we had to talk about, and it was way better than last year's, but the bar was on the floor. And I'm very curious what y'all thought about it. If there's anything I got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!